Hey there, sensational Sixers. Let's get into our next lesson. Now that the Roman Republic is kaput, and it is now an imperial state ruled by a dictator, we're now going to look at the beginning stages of that and the first few emperors that were all in the line of Julius Caesar. And his line of successors. And the good, the bad, and the ugly that these emperors do as rulers of Rome. We're also going to just look at the influence of a time period known as the Roman Peace or Pax Romana. Because we're going to see that if you're a member of the royal family, if you're a member of the nobility of Rome, if you're in any way connected, these are pretty violent times. But if you're like the average Joe or Jane living within the Roman Empire, unless you're getting conquered by the Romans or a slave in gladiator matches, your life's pretty peaceful. And we see that there's a lot of innovation and expansion during this time period. So let's pick up where we left off with this guy, Augustus. No longer Octavian. I'm dropping my name I was born with, and I'm now giving myself my rock star name. I am now Augustus Caesar. No, don't you call me Octavian anymore. Augustus Caesar now has total control of the empire. He wins loyalty of the army by giving soldiers land when they retire. He makes the Senate pretty much a rubber stamp. They pretend that they are a republic, but the Senate is just made up of people who he put in place to be there. And any law that they pass is pretty much the laws that he says that he wants. And he's going to establish that dynastic tradition of succession of power to the throne. That when I die, somebody who's related to me will take over. And we're going to see that it won't necessarily always be the son of the king, because there's going to be a lot of war and murder and killing and infighting among anybody who's in line to a throne. But we see this with any dynasty. In order to have a dynasty, you have to have people who are going to die nasty. So, there's a little cartoon picture of Augustus. Let's talk about his rule. He's a ruler for 41 years. 41 years. That is a crazy amount of time. So if we look at 41 years ago, we're talking about 1979. Jimmy Carter was president. I was 4. So from the time that I was 4 until now, having the same person rule over your land, that is a significant time for one person to rule. And he, as ruler, after going through the wars, the Civil War with Mark Antony and all the violence that leads up to him assuming power, he tries to keep peace and order for the most part. He improves infrastructure. He expands the Roman network of roads, bridges, aqueducts. He pushes forward the construction of key buildings, including the Pantheon. If you ever go to Rome, it's one of the most famous structures of ancient Rome. He centralized the government. He made it the government of Rome have greater control throughout the empire. By putting in place a fair tax code, setting forward in local places firefighters, police forces to be able to kind of keep law and order within each of the territories, which during his time he expanded greatly. He also puts in place a pretty massive bureaucracy so that there were competent officials in each different place of the empire who could run things in his place. You think of a central government as a wheel. He is the axle of the wheel, and he sets everything else moving around him. Now, this isn't to say that he was a great guy. he was an effective ruler, and he definitely was able to accomplish some great things. But he also trashed, self-rule of the government. He destroyed the republic, and anybody who stood against him was met with a pretty untimely and usually horrible death. We're going to see that after Augustus dies, he's going to leave a line of successors to follow him that were in some way connected to his family bloodline. Once again, these people aren't direct blood relatives. Sometimes they might be adopted into the family, but we see that they are connected in some way to Augustus and Julius Caesar's family line. And we're going to see that these dynasties are often marked with a good deal of bloodshed. Hey, if I know that my brother is in line to the throne of Rome and will be able to rule as the emperor of the Roman Empire, and I kill my brother, then that means that I'm now in line to get that? Ooh, cool. Hey, brother, come here. Look over this balcony. Look at the view. Whoop. Ah. Now, there's a lot of murder between family members in this part of the Roman dynasties and empires. So let's meet the first, the next four emperors of the Julius Caesar, and Claudian, this guy Claudius, his family, their dynasty. Their two families merged together. So first we have, after Augustus passes away, rule passes on to his stepson, Tiberius. Tiberius was an accomplished general, but he was not really a popular emperor because the guy had no charisma. He had no personality. He's seen as pretty withdrawn, dark, sullen. He definitely got his kicks having people tortured, which seems to be a common theme for Roman emperors. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we're going to see that anyone that he saw as possibly being in line to him to trying to take his throne, anyone that would succeed him, he actually goes after his successors and has them killed. Because as long as they're around, they're going to want Tiberius out of the way. And that includes his adoptive son, Germanicus. Germanicus was this great general, as his name, Germanicus, indicates. He was able to expand Roman territories successfully into a lot of what we presently call Germany. He was a great conqueror. He came back to Rome as a hero, and Tiberius is like, dude, this guy's going to pretty much have me killed off. Nobody likes me, and he'll become emperor. And he has a claim to it since he's my adoptive son. So, hey, why don't you eat this food that's covered with poison? Hey. Yeah. Now, Germanicus's son, eventually, when he comes of age in his early 20s, is most likely the one who has Tiberius himself killed. They announced that he's dead, but many historians believe that he was smothered with his own bedclothes. Yeah, they took what he was wearing, like his blankets and everything, and his sheets and everything in bed, and smothered him with it. Most dynasties don't end well. There's a lot of people who die nasty. So that leads us to Caligula. Caligula's name has become synonymous in history with why we shouldn't have people with absolute power. He is the worst of what a tyrant can be. He only rules for 4 years, and that's 4 years too many. He was obviously mentally ill. He had the mind of a serial killer in a lot of ways. He was a sociopath. He enjoyed torture, murder, humiliating people. He was known for his cruelty. And you give somebody like that the power up. Auto recovery. There it goes. Thanks. You give somebody like that the power of the Roman emperor, having absolute power and control and being treated like a god on earth. Oh, it's horrible. He declares himself a god. He orders that his statue is put in place in every Roman temple, putting him as equal place with the gods. He has massive, lavish ceremonies and bizarre building projects that he puts in place. The building of a massive fleet of party boats that were like floating Roman temples. He bankrupts much of Rome, spending it on himself in 4 years with his lavish taste. He was known for murdering anybody who he thought might be a threat to him, or just who he just didn't like on that day. Many of the people who worked for him, many of the soldiers that would work for him, he would have their children tortured in front of them before he then killed them. And he would force parents to like smile as their children were getting tortured. We're talking about like a really messed up guy. So, and the most famous act of his insanity was at one point he had his horse, who he loved, named as a senator, named as a Roman government official. Caligula. And no shock, the guards that were sworn to protect the Roman emperor, are the ones who killed him. They're like, dude, we've had enough. We can't deal with you anymore.